tell anybody that's trying to build systems, bring your teams in. Like, have them. Like, here's the problem. How would you guys solve this problem? Because a lot of times, John, you know this after being in business so long, they have better ideas than we do. Welcome to the Sales Made Simple podcast. This podcast is dedicated to helping overwhelmed outdoor living professionals, landscapers, and hardscapers just like you increase your closing rate to over 75% without doubling your workload so you can build a seven-figure business that doesn't need you. I'm your host, Joshua Gillow. Let's dig in. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. This week, I have John Valenta from General Pavingstone's on. I've known John for a couple of years now, and I've always been impressed with his ability to communicate to his customers. I know he's taken sales as a main focus of his business to make sure that he is learning how to communicate so he can be best and most valuable to his customers. So I wanted to bring him on here today to, first of all, hear about his story, how he got to where he is right now, and then also some of the things that he struggles with and things that we all struggle with as business owners. So John, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Joshua. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, it's I know when we met down at the Synced Up Summit, you're like, "Hey, I got a bone to pick with you." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" You're like, "I jumped in my car to drive down here to North Carolina and I popped in a podcast, this one, and what's up with the 5-minute podcast?" Remember that? You're like,
Yeah, I was, I had like I think a 7 or 8 hour ride, and I was hoping to listen to some long podcasts, and yours didn't cut it. Listened to them all, but it didn't even, take up a fraction of the ride.
You didn't get out of your driveway and you were already done.
Yeah.
Anyway, man, thanks for coming on to the show here. And I'd love to just jump in so the listeners can get a sense of who they're listening to if they don't already know you. So, tell us a little bit about how you got started in this business and, what about business shaped you early on.
Yeah, well, I got started in the business a long, long time ago. I'm 52, and my father started his landscape business when I was 3, so it's pretty much all I know.
Mm-hmm.
He had me out there mowing lawns and watering trees, I think around 11. So pretty much every summer, through school, worked for him, and he had me on the crew, and it was mostly grading and seeding and sod and planting and things like that. He did bigger commercial projects. He even did like highway work. Not much maintenance, not much residential stuff. I wanted to go do my thing and join the Marine Corps, but always knew that I would come back and work for my father. So I did my 4 years in the Marine Corps, came back out, went full-time working for my father. So that was back in 1996. And it was right around the time when he was making the switch from railroad tie walls to segmental retaining walls. And kind of threw that at me. He had a large company with about 20 employees and did pretty much everything, all the planting, grading and seeding, irrigation, and kind of threw the hardscape at me and sent me to some classes. And I pretty much, took it and, really, really enjoyed it, and pretty much did all of the hardscape work, a lot of big, commercial projects, thousands of square feet, rooftops in like Jersey City and Hoboken, and, parking lots and driveways and some big retaining walls at some big, shopping centers and things like that. But the commercial, I guess the commercial hustle kind of started getting to me, where knowing that all they cared about was the low bid. And once you got there, if you got the job, you were the cheapest price. All they cared about that was that it was done yesterday. It's wasn't really my thing of what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, knowing that at some point my father would retire and I'd have to do something else. And um, I decided that I would try residential work. And occasionally, when my father would get a request from, friend, family, or one of the, builders we were working for to work at their house, he would send me, and I really liked it because they were actually like appreciative of what we did.
Yeah.
And thought, this is what I want to do. I'm going to start a totally separate business and do residential work. And That was well, we just finished up our 13th season, and it's still what I prefer to do is the small residential projects where the people are willing to pay for a good quality job and appreciate what we do.
Yeah. There's something so powerful about working with the end user, right? Working with the homeowner that their family is going to actually spend time out there and not just be a space that they're going to park cars on or whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but there's something that in the early days for me, working directly with the end user was very important and it was very, I don't know, filled my soul. Do you feel that as well?
Oh, absolutely. It's way more satisfying. The
Yeah.
projects aren't as big. It's not, I don't have this giant company with 20 employees. It's me and two, sometimes three employees, just one crew doing one job at a time, but it's
Mhm.
it's a lot more satisfying and I enjoy it a lot more.
Yeah. No, I love that, dude. I love it. So, what are some of the early struggles you faced going from that world where your father kind of built this bigger company and you're kind of going into the residential world? And did you have struggles with him with that vision, or what are some things that it took you to translate into the residential world?
Yeah, I mean, the early struggle was just deciding when to do it. I'm a very loyal person, so I didn't want to leave my father. I mean, I had moved
Uh-huh.
up in the company and I was a project manager and I had a lot of people under me and I was running big projects and I just didn't feel like I could leave him and that kind of made him feel like he couldn't retire because I was working for him and I had a wife and three
Mhm.
kids and so it kind of probably took little bit longer than it should have, but eventually he, got up there in age and decided to retire and let me know. He was very supportive and actually, let me start doing some of my own jobs before he retired. So I actually was working a little bit for him and a little bit for myself. So I actually built up a little bit of a customer base before I fully went on my own. So I had some satisfied clients and some good referrals to get started and, had some work that first year, which was still a struggle, being brand new. Did work for friends and family, people that knew me. But we got through the first year, and 13 years later, we're still working.
Love it. What's a lesson that you learned along the way that you had to learn the hard way?
I mean, what didn't I learn the hard way? Like I've heard you say a lot, there's really no instruction manual when you start your own business, and
Mhm.
I thought I knew it all working for my father, and all of a sudden everything is thrown in my lap, and
Mhm.
I gotta learn how to do the taxes and all of the things that are required to run a business and sell work and hire employees. And I had a couple of employees and within the first 2 weeks of starting my business, they quit and I was all by myself, but just had to keep pushing and do the work during the day and do the sales and office work in the evening and weekends. And I guess it was worth it because I'm still here and I got a couple of good employees now and we're still moving along.
Yeah. What kept you pushing during those times when people were quitting on you and you didn't you have work, but you don't have people and you've got promises on the street that are going to be tough to connect to now and get done. So what did you
Yeah.
do to make that happen?
I think a lot of that was just what was like drilled into me in the Marine Corps as far as, not quitting. If I, made this decision and made this commitment and, I'm supporting my wife and three kids, I don't want to let them down. So, hey, I'll do what I got to do. And if it means I got to work a little bit longer than I hope, well, hopefully that's temporary. I get through it. And that's what happened. I ended up, hiring a couple of good people and, selling some work and now here we are 13 years later.
Yeah. What's an average project size for you and your team?
Average I would say is probably around maybe the 50,000 range.
Okay.
We'll do some small stuff that, for a couple $1,000s that we bang out in a half a day. And we've done, think three projects over 100,000 in like, you know, 100 to 100, I think 185 was the biggest project we did.
Hmm.
Really big retaining wall. Um, so probably 50 is like an average backyard patio type of
Hmm.
project we do, or retaining wall. We do a lot of front entrances that are like up on a hill. So like when a house has the garage in the basement, it's a challenge to get to the front door, and there's typically a retaining wall and a lot of steps. And we are a little bit of a hilly area here in Northwest Jersey where there's a lot of those. We've done a lot of those type projects, and
Yeah.
we just did one this couple of months ago, and yeah, it's around 50,000 to get from the
Nice.
garage to the front door, which sounds like a lot, but it's a lot of work, a lot of
No, for
steps
sure.
and retaining wall, and then we throw in some low voltage lighting, and there you
Mhm.
go.
No, that's amazing. Now, when it comes to larger projects, if your standard is about 50, which is an amazing space to be in, if you get to that 100 or 150 or even 185, what are some things that you see that come up as challenges for you and your team when you start expanding into much bigger, more demanding projects?
Me and my team both really enjoy the large projects like that. No, we're not moving our equipment. We get our
Mhm.
equipment there, and it's there for a while. We get all the materials, the pavers, the blocks, triaxles, gravel, and everything just delivered right to the site. So we get a lot more efficient having everything right there and going to the same place every day. I would say, it's pretty easy to keep up with as long as I'm, managing because, it's just me as far as, the office. I'm managing, deliveries and scheduling. The challenge I find then is with sales. When I get a call and one of the early questions I ask is, when are you hoping to have this project completed? And when they
Mm.
tell me, next week or even next month, and I tell them, we're booked out for 3 to 4 months. Some people don't want to hear that and end up looking for someone else that might be available sooner and
Yeah.
we tend to lose opportunities.
Yeah, yeah. I remember back in the days doing larger projects of about that scale because our average was probably 25 to 50 in the earlier days. That was after the $1 to $5,000 days, right?
Right.
We graduated up to that point, and we were very happy around that 25 to 50 range. But sometimes we get larger projects over 100 would come in, and what I found was like, great, as a salesperson, I was like, awesome, we just got all this big project, we got all this time sold, this is amazing, you fit it in the schedule. But we started to see the guys on site started getting really bored at the same place. Even though it was more efficient for us, they're like, we're going back there again. There I remember there was this time in a project where, like, when you got started, you were really excited about it. Then you kind of started hitting a certain stride, and then it kind of got boring. Like, I don't know if you've experienced that. It's kind of like you get in the middle and you're like, oh crap, I've got to get this done. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it done. I have it booked for 7 more days. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get all this done. I don't like. Then I start doubting my entire skills as an estimator and as a salesperson. And the next thing you know, it's like by the last 2 days, you're like, let's go. And somehow it always works or gets close to it. But man, there's like that middle ground where you start doubting yourself. Have you ever had that before?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I've seen it in my employees where we get towards the end and it's, we're getting to that final stretch and they'll say to me like, we're ready to go to the next one. We're
Yeah.
ready to be done here. But as far as like, the hours and the estimate versus the actual, it's gotten better every
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
And if it's a big project that we're going to be on, a month or more, we'll have a couple of meetings throughout and
Mm.
just discuss where we're at, where we got to this point, what we have left, what it's looking like, whether we're on a good schedule or maybe not, and if not, what can we do to try
Yeah.
to get us back on track?
Yeah, so much of that is morale, right? And focus and clarity on what's coming next and all of that. Because our teams would get tired and they would look and they feel like they're not getting anything done, especially after the base is done, where you're just getting the base in, you got mud to deal with, and you finally start laying stones. It starts to look like something is happening. That's 25 to 50s. You get in and out in a couple of days, maybe a week. So you're always turning new projects. So it's always a new world. But when you're there for 3, 4, 5 weeks, you're just like, oh my goodness, that's I'm getting bored of this place. And keeping that morale up in the team can be a challenge at times.
Yeah, and a lot of it depends on the client. If sometimes it's a client we really like and we don't want to leave because,
Yeah,
they're
happens.
feeding us lunch or, bringing out cookies in the afternoon or just really, a pleasure to work with. And then on the other hand, when it's a client that keeps coming outside and saying, can you change this and can you change that? Or, we can't wait to get out of here.
Can you rotate that boulder, 30
Yeah,
degrees? Can you move that bush and just turn it slightly so the nice side is toward the house, right? It's like, can you turn
yeah.
that light a little bit more this way? Oh, yeah, that's always fun for sure. Oh, goodness. So when it comes to, making those decisions, working with the team, were you ever at a situation where you had to make a decision between what you knew was right and what you thought was right for the company when it comes to integrity? Like, you're looking at it, you're like, I could probably get away with something, but I just can't, or I did. Like, is there anything when it comes to integrity that you've remember working through in the last 13 years?
Not sure I'm following you, Joshua. I'm sorry.
Well, sometimes when a project is done, there's a certain way that we want it to be, right? As the designers, let's say, right? And we
Yeah.
look at it when we designed it, we said, this is how it's going to look. And somehow, sometimes projects don't turn out exactly the way it's in our mind's eye or as we're going along, as it's growing. So I know back in the days, I would be like, man, it should really look like this. The boulder should have tucked a little earlier. The steps should be just a little bit wider. So it feels right to me as the builder as well. But the client didn't really say anything, right? They didn't have a problem with it. But I'm like, I really want it to be good. I want it to be really well done and to look the way that I think it should. And there's times when I was like, you know what? I'm going to go in and spend some extra time to make sure it's the way I think it should be, even if the client didn't ask for it, to make sure that I can walk away feeling proud of what was done. And sometimes that got me in trouble, right? Clients like, what did you do to my place? And I'm like, this is better now. And they're like, I didn't really want it that way. I like what it was in the beginning. So I learned the hard way that way for sure. But that's what I mean by the integrity side. Like, I think it should be this way. So I'm going to take the extra time and surprise the client with it and eventually have a problem where they didn't really want the surprise. Has that ever happened to you, or is that just my crazy world?
Yeah, I can't think of a situation like that. I mean, we will always take the extra time, even if the client doesn't say something. And then we have had, a situation where we moved or adjusted something just because we thought it would have looked better. And then the client actually comes out and says, thank you. Like
Yeah.
maybe they were thinking it, but didn't actually, feel it coming out and saying something. But something else that I've, noticed recently in the last few years, my employees have been with me for over 8 years now. So I've just been kind of pulling back and giving them more freedom.
Mhm.
Sometimes they'll do something a little different than I would, and I'll give them the freedom to do that. And at the end of the job, it's like, wow, that really did turn out nice.
Yeah.
And, they were able to come up with their own way, a little different from me, but it turned out great. And it's
Yeah.
it's really satisfying to see.
Absolutely. But is it always satisfying in the beginning, or are you kind of just biting your tongue waiting to see what happens?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely biting the tongue. But it pays off in the long run to give them that freedom and let them come up with their own way. And it's better for everybody, and especially when the client is happy. And I'm look at that, my employees kind of came up with their own solution or their own
Mhm.
little thing there, and the client is happy, and I see nothing better than that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know when I first tried to implement systems into the business, I thought I had to come up with them all and then basically tell my teammates that they're going to be doing it this way. And it didn't really work out that well. Right? That was back in the old family company when I was like, all right, here's how we're going to do it. They're like, yeah, I don't like it that way. It doesn't make any sense. I see it from a different perspective. My brother was out in the field. He was the one building everything. I was the one selling and helping out and doing office stuff, all that stuff. So it was like from the inside to the outside, there was a disconnect. But in my mind, in an ideal world, this is how it works from the paper to the backyard, right? But when you get to the backyard, like, oh yeah, I forgot about the grade is not exactly the way it is in my design. In my design, it's perfect. And here it's not exactly that way, or the access wasn't as good as I thought it would be, or whatever it might be. Right. So I found that I was like, well, if I just kind of dictate what we're gonna do, there's not as much buy-in. But when there's autonomy, when there's the space for them, the freedom as you talk about, right? The freedom for them to start throwing their own ideas in there, as soon as they know that they have that ability to throw in ideas, all of a sudden their brain comes alive. I tell anybody that's trying to build systems, bring your teams in. Like, have them. Like, here's the problem. How would you guys solve this problem? Because a lot of times, John, you know this after being in business so long, they have better ideas than we do. And you're like, yeah, we're going to go with that. That was better than my idea, right? Or it's some variation of that. Have you found that to be true?
Oh yeah, yeah, 100%. A couple of years ago, with the help of my coach, when I get a call from an employee, that runs into an issue unexpected and says, hey, what should we do here? I used to quite often just jump in the truck and head over there and
Mhm.
solve the problem, or try to solve it on the phone. But now it's, well, what do you think we should do? And letting them know that like they're important and they're smart and they can figure it out, and let them do it. And the more you let them do it, the more that then they just do it without even asking, or
Mhm.
they'll just call me to say, hey, this came up. We think we should do this, or even we did this, just to let me know. And
Yeah.
it's great to see.
It is. It's finally some space and they come up with better ideas and you don't have the responsibility of making that decision. And if we empower them with giving them the space to make that decision. When it comes up again, to your point, they'll make it and they don't have to call us for that. And we keep stacking those one after another, after another, after another. Pretty soon, we don't get many calls and they know how to do things all on their own because we've empowered them with that opportunity. It's so important. Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that you're implementing that.
and then I'm not on a sales call somewhere with my phone blowing up.
Exactly, exactly. Should we turn left or turn right? I'm like, you're not 6 years old. Figure it out, you know. But we
Yeah.
got again. If we micromanage all the time because our perfectionist mindset comes out, that was something that I struggle with. Was everything had to be perfect, right? And if it come out and it wasn't the way that I thought it was supposed to be, or I thought it was going to waste time, I would just shut it down and say we got to do it this way. And then pretty soon they just come to you like they're handcuffed. What should I do next? What should I do next? What should I do next? Because they're just afraid to speak. And after learning that the hard way and learning that, man, instead of me saying what to do, I should ask better questions, right? You want better answers in life, you got to ask better questions. And when I ask a question, like the first question I always ask when they ask me a question is, well, what do you think? I want to get their perspective. Well, I think if we went left here, it would make the most sense. We can go around the tree and we can access it from this side. Okay. Are there any other options that you think could be even better? More questions. Pretty soon you're like, no, that's really the only way I can see it. And if you see something else, you can say, but what if you went right? What would you run into there? What are some pros and cons for that? And then you eventually get to the right answer, not that you have to be right, but that the answer is right, whether it's from them or from you. So yeah, it took me a long time to learn, but eventually it certainly did help with growth and the ability to step back from the field, right? Because then the field was running by themselves because they had the empowerment they needed in order to grow and to make those great decisions. So I love that you're implementing that.
Yeah, it's been a huge huge help with them not needing me nearly as much, which is giving me the freedom
Yeah,
to go out there and sell work and be available for clients and not be working nights and weekends and be able to spend the, time off of work with my family.
absolutely. And that's what it's all about, right? This whole the
Yep.
reason why we start business is to make money so we can get freedom in life and we can spend times with the ones we love. And if the business is running 98% of our conscious time, then are we really winning? Or did we just have a job with a boss who just won't stop, right? Ourselves.
Yep.
So it is very important to know that keep our focus on what our end goal is, which is more of that time to spend with family, to go hunting, to do whatever you do with your time, to be able to have that freedom and to do whatever you want for as long as you want with whoever you want. That's so important. One thing that I find interesting about you, John, is you've been sales training for years now. And I'd love to wrap up this episode just with this question. At what point did you decide that it would be a good investment or a good investment of both time and money to start becoming a better communicator? And then from there, what I'd love to do is take the whole next episode and go through what that looked like. So when did you decide that and how did that look for you?
Yeah, that was what's this 2025, 5.5 years ago.
Okay.
Um, when I was just very frustrated with my close rate being about 3 out of 10. And
Hmm.
I was doing the whole 3D design, full on estimate, proposal, presentation, everything for 7 people that really had no intention of ever hiring me.
Hmm.
And I didn't know that. And I just thought that's the way you got to do it. And you got to grind and you got to just meet with more people and do more designs and estimates till you finally get someone to say yes.
Yeah.
And it was just really, really wearing on me.
Got it. Yeah, I can imagine that. How'd that impact your life and your business with that weight?
It was just, nonstop nights and weekends, and just being kind of, you know, a yes man and, okay, so this person called and they want to meet me in the evening or on the weekend, and I would just say yes and I would just go and I would miss, things with my family because hey, I gotta
Hmm.
go get work because I gotta go do all these free designs and estimates. And I finally got fed up with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I very much look forward to jumping deeper into this next week when we chat. We're going to talk, listeners, we're going to talk about sales training, personal growth, how John took that frustration, turned it into something amazing. So, John, I appreciate your openness today and sharing your story so far, and I can't wait to dig in more next time.
Cool. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed being here.
Awesome. All right, guys, we'll see you next week.